This is a Stock Trading Reality Podcast, episode 114.
Years ago, when we were living in California, got introduced to penny stocks, and a whole bunch of us decided to buy into this, and I don't even remember what it was. I've tried hard to remember because of all the people that's talked about their past penny stock experiences, but I don't remember what the product was. But I remember opening a brokerage account with $500, and I bought $500 worth of shares. And, they're gone.
This is the Stock Trading Reality Podcast, where you get to see the realistic side of a trader's journey. Get inspired and stay motivated by everyday normal people who are currently on their journey to trading success. And this is your host. The lottery is one of his biggest pet peeves. Play trader.
Yeah, it's just, for those of you that have been longtime listeners, you know I'm kind of a cheapskate. I like to call it being frugal with my money. But when odds are blatantly looking you in the face saying it's highly unlikely that this is a good way to spend your money, I just don't like to waste my money. And to me, that's just what the lottery is. Now, I get it. It's like $1 a ticket, $5 a ticket. So it's not like anybody is going broke to do it. So I get the fun factor. I get the whole dream factor. But I guess it's just my inability to not be such a cheapskate that to me, the lottery, it's a pet peeve. Why spend your money on something where you, whatever the stats are, you have a better chance of getting struck by lightning like 7 days in? I don't know, crazy stats like that. So, if you play the lottery, if you like to do it, as long as you're not doing it to think it's going to finance your future, then fine. But for me, I don't know. It just it irks me because it irks the cheapskatedness in me. But Ches, I don't know if you play the lottery. If you do, we're still friends. But I don't know. That just the lottery is a pet peeve of mine for those reasons. Do you have any thoughts in general? Then nothing's really right or wrong.
I only play the lottery when, and very $5 worth when it's in the billions or whatever, and it's on the news and it's a big thing, and I'll just, when I'm getting gas, just grab one. But I actually have a friend that I used to work with who's in his 30s, and he religiously buys those $5 and $10 scratch off things, and I'm just like, dude, you're blowing so much money. He's like, no, I win every other time, things like that. I'm like, are you ahead? He's like, no, definitely not. So, no, I'm in the same boat as you, but I will lump it like you said. If you want to lump that into your little hobby and it's not breaking the bank or something and that you find enjoyment out of it, by all means go for it. But for me, there's much better things I can do with my money than the lottery.
Right. I like the way you set the context. If it's one of those billions, it's on, the news all over the place. And then the keyword, maybe I'll do $5 worth. Okay, fine. But religiously, your buddy, are you ahead? Well, no, but exactly. But that's kind of, I guess, how they're set up, right? To make you think that you're actually making progress when in all actuality,
yeah, and it's kind of the opposite though of trading in the sense, you might have 10 winners and then the one loser you have, it stands out in your mind. With the lottery stuff, it's almost
that's
he
true.
Loses 10 times and he remembers the 3 winners he had, which don't even come close to wiping out what he paid. But yeah, it's kind of funny how that's opposite.
Yeah, that is. I never realized that until you brought it up. So that's actually kind of really funny when you stop and think about it, is the way the human mind kind of flipped things around on you. But super fascinating. You know what else is super fascinating? Our guest today, tfletch, is what he goes by in the chat room. He's in there quite a bit. Great member. I met him in Nashville, as you'll hear about. And as soon as I met him and just hung out with him, wow, we got to get him on the podcast. He's a busy guy, and he obliged, so we're going to bring that. It is a 2-parter, so this will be part 1, and that's really how good it was. He's got a lot of experience. He's got a lot of life experience. He was actually a broker at one point in time, and we spent a lot of time on that, but just some truly great stuff. And one thing of clarity now that we've recorded it and thinking back, we talk about Columbus. We'll talk in Columbus. At the time of this recording, within the claytrader.com community, we'll do periodic meetups, around the country. So soon we will be going to Columbus, Ohio, just to meet up with other members. Whoever wants to, come hang out. We usually rent out a room and then just do appetizers and drinks, and everybody can just network and socialize, kind of put a name with the face that you see in the chat room. So when you hear us talking about Columbus, And that's what we're talking about, tfletch. He came to one already in Nashville, so that's how I've met him. But he's going to be coming back to the one in Columbus that, like I said, at the time this recording, is really just a week away. So, but by the time this airs, the meetup will have already happened. But that is what all of the Columbus talk about is. So without further ado, let's hear about tfletch and his awesome journey. Right. tfletch, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, I'm not going to lie to you listeners. I'm pretty excited. I try not to be biased. I mean, I'm excited to interview everybody, but sometimes you're just a little bit more excited. And that is the case here. I think because I've met tfletch. We met up in Nashville, and I'll never forget it. But the very first thing he ever said to me, I was reaching in my pocket and grabbing my brass knuckles because I was getting ready to throw down. Do you remember the first thing you said to me in Nashville?
Yes.
What can you share that?
Well, it was basically, I hate you, Clay, because you
Yes, exactly. That was like the first words ever was I hate you, Clay. And I'm like, okay, this is a first meet and greet. We got ourselves somebody that's not happy. So I was
invest
bracing.
in that private security firm for these meetups, Clay. You're at risk every time you go out in public.
But then he had a good hook. So what was the hook here? You hate me, but there's a but.
Right hook.
You ruined my life. I mean, I no longer hunt. My golf game has gone to crap, and you've got your hooks in me, and I can't get away.
And because you're just a beast when it comes to wanting to figure out how to do this whole trading thing. You've just been like hard. I mean, we'll get into this, but you don't really hate me is what I'm trying to get across there. It was more so, well, not hating me in a vicious sense.
Well, I've put that on hold until I see if I make millions.
Hey, that's a fair point. That's actually super fair. So, but yeah, so moral of the story here, I have met tfletch in person. Super fun, great guy, a very nice guy, and we live like an hour and a half away. He's up here in Michigan. So we tried to do this a couple weeks ago, but there's a few hiccups, but he's back now, and we're going to knock this thing out. So I know a little bit about your background based off what you said in Nashville. So I'm super excited to hear more about that. But let's just start from the beginning. What got you interested in the markets? Where did you first hear about the markets? And in your case, I know you've had some experience in your past life, if you will, as a part of the markets, and you've seen it very real and close up. So I'll kind of let you start wherever you want and wherever you think would be best.
All right. Well, there's a lot of places I guess I could start, but years ago when we were living in California, got introduced to penny stocks, and a guy was pumping them, and I was working at a Cadillac dealership, and a whole bunch of us decided to buy into this, and I don't even remember what it was. I've tried hard to remember because of all the people that's talked about their past penny stock experiences, but I don't remember what the product was. But I remember opening a brokerage account with $500, and I bought $500 worth of shares, and they're gone. It's gone. So
it's gone. You spent it on the yacht that he's sitting on right now for this podcast, right?
Exactly. So that was my first experience, but someone tried to get me to start investing for my future because I was in my 20s at that time. So that was like 40 years ago, and because I'm
can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
So because I don't you're a young buck. There's no doubt about that. But this was, in your 20s, a long time ago. So how did penny stocks work then? I mean, there wasn't an online brokerage where you could just pull out your phone and quick do things. So how exactly did all that penny stock stuff go down? Out in California, literally a couple decades ago. I'm very fascinated from the sense of I don't know how any of that was it literally pink sheets that you had to trade them on, or how'd that all unfold?
I opened an account with my father-in-law had investments and stuff, and I had zero investments in my 20s. I just wanted to make money, and I thought I can save for retirement at a later point. So I opened an account where he was, which that company's long gone. I don't remember the name of it, but I opened it up, put $500 in there, and I put the whole $500 into that company that this guy was running around getting everybody into. And of course, it's just funny when I watched penny stock survival guide and listen to everyone's podcast about how they hype it so much, and you think, oh, we're going to make a fortune, and I thought that, I admit, and it didn't work out so well.
Now, running around, so is this literally somebody, did you get a cold call on the phone? Was it a fax? Or did somebody literally show up in person and pump this? Obviously, there was no internet where you couldn't have signed up for a newsletter or
Right.
seen it on social media. So how did you hear about this actual penny stock?
Well, there was an individual that worked at the dealership that a friend of his had pumped him on it. So I don't know where it came from directly, but it was spreading like wildfire. And I remember quite a number of employees there at the dealership did buy into it, and we followed it for a while. And I don't know that it ever did go up. Like I
The
said,
great
that was
Cadillac
a long time ago.
dealership pump and dump. That's what I'm going to name that classic right there.
There you
So,
go.
but so here's the thing. So actually, how were you even checking on positions back then? Like, did you just have to, like, I don't even know, without the internet, like, I have no idea how I would even function as far as following stuff. So how did you even know, like, the value of that stuff day after day?
Well, I'll be able to help you with some of that insight when we get to the part when I was a broker. But back then, it was just a matter of calling the brokerage and asking them where it was. That was the extent of it. You had a broker that you dealt with, and he'd give you the quote.
That, I can't imagine wanting to be a broker and having people call up over and over. Hey, what's the price of this? Hey, what's the price of that?
Well, I did it for 4
Hey,
years.
Billy Bob Broker, I'm just calling you to check
Yeah.
on my penny stock positions.
Yeah. Could you imagine
They're
me
down
as a
again.
short-term day trader? Okay, when I was at, okay, I'll call you back in 4 seconds. Hey, okay, now what? Yeah. But, so, all right, well, you kind of let the cat out of the bag, and I know Ches, I withheld that from him, but I know you used to be like literally hands-on, so you were a broker, so you're working at the car dealership with the penny stock, and we know that you're a broker. So kind of bridge that gap. What exactly happened that, led you to literally getting involved in the market in such an intimate way?
Well, I was in the car business. I mean, I started out as a technician. That's what I went to college for. And then I worked into sales and then sales management, and ended up in managing a Cadillac dealership in Hollywood, California. And it was quite an interesting experience. And so now I'm like in my late 20s and had, doing it for 10 years. And my brother-in-law ended up purchasing a manual and called the World's Most Powerful Money Manual. And are you familiar with that?
I have not heard of it.
I've not heard of it, but it's a great title.
Ken Roberts wrote the book, the manual, and he would sell it as a package for $250 or $290 each on late night infomercials. And I actually met the guy in Hollywood because he lived north of Los Angeles, and he sold literally thousands and thousands and thousands of these manuals. And the reason I know he sold thousands of them is because my brother-in-law, when he got the manual, he consumed it, wanted to trade futures or commodities, and he started doing that. And then he wanted to open his own brokerage and get all these referrals and open them as accounts and make hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's exactly what he did. He opened a brokerage in a futures or a commodities brokerage. You're an introducing broker, and you clear through it. Put your trades through a clearing firm in Chicago. So he did that, and he got a hold of me and says, I need you here. And he says, with your sales ability and what you know, and I have literally 5,000 plus leads sitting here of people that have called to open an account or inquire about account. And I need someone like you here. I have 2 guys, but they're not getting it done. We need more. So my wife and I was thinking, I've been working 60, 70, 80 hours a week in a dealership, 7 days a week, and I was getting wore out, and I was only in my 20s, and I thought, he's making a tremendous amount of money, it sounds like, so I'm going to check this out. So we flew back to Michigan. He had just bought a brand new home, had a couple brand new cars, and a very, very nice brokerage office, and he was literally making $20,000 to $40,000 to $50,000 a month off commissions. Now, keep in mind here, well, I'll wait for that for a minute. So anyways.
Could I just a little more context, if you're willing? What year was this happening in?
This was in 1989.
Okay. So, I mean, not that even, heck, $40,000 a month right now is a lot of money, but you go back to the 80s, that's a lot of money to be making per month.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and for rich, and I wasn't quite making that in the car business, trust me. But we were doing well in California. It was a good life, and at our age, we were doing well, and I was happy, except for it was really starting to affect my marriage from the standpoint that I was working so many hours. I never saw my wife. I didn't see my son was born in California. I didn't see him awake hardly at all the first 2 years of his life, because I'd get home, he was sleeping. When I would leave in the morning, he's sleeping. And so I always told myself, when my job starts to affect my personal life is the day I got to make a change. And that all coincided with my brother-in-law getting a hold of me. So back to Michigan we go. We sell our house, pack up, move back. But before I did that, I studied for 6 months to pass the Series 3 broker's license, or to get a license. And that was a lot of work. And the test was extremely difficult. And I studied and studied and studied, and I took the test, and I passed the first time, which I am so glad. So I end up back here in Michigan. I sit down at the broker's desk. I knew nothing other than what I studied in those about being a broker. And basically it was just learn by the seat of your pants. And it was so funny because the first client that called up that I was assigned to, happened to be a lady, and she called and wanted quotes. They basically have a list of quotes they want, and you have to read them all off to them. And I messed up quite a few of them because of how, yeah, it was quite hilarious, except in my mind, I was totally embarrassed. I felt totally out of my comfort zone. And I thought, what in the hell am I doing here? And so she got a little upset and asked to talk to someone else. And I put her on hold, and I went, this really started off great. And so anyways, I got through that. All I kept telling myself, just give me 6 months. In 6 months, I'll know this stuff. I'll be comfortable with it, and I'll be on my way. And so every day I got more comfortable with it. But yeah, we had a list of clients that would call up morning, maybe throughout the day, and every evening, and get their quotes on whatever markets they were following.
That's what Clay would have done.
Yeah, I would have been every 10 seconds. So
yeah,
it sounds to me like, because when I got my real estate license, you learn about rules and regulations and, the Fair Housing Act and this, that, and the other. And they're like, okay, you get your license. I had no, so how do I fill out a purchase sales contract? How do I fill out a listing agreement? Is that kind of what it was for you as a broker? You learned about all these rules and regulations, but when it came to more of the practical things, you had no idea?
No. I mean, I didn't know how to trade. I had no idea about support resistance. All we had were green screen, or black screens with green lines on them. And you didn't have anywhere near what we have today. And we were given quotes, and we'd look at the charts, and we had people that traded all different things. And in hindsight now, after going through the CTU and the studying I've done over the last 12 months, the learning process that I've been through now, if I had it back then, it would have been a totally different story. But we just puppet traded is what we did.
Now who are you puppet trading off? Because that's interesting. You're a broker, so as a broker, who are you puppet trading off of?
The first one was Ken Roberts, because he had a hotline. And
hotline. We are young, but we are young in this game. A hotline.
Yeah, you would call in, and he'd have a recording every day. And we and to everyone that listens to this, it's going to sound like I'm really sucking up to Clay. That's not the case.
No, I assure you, I've met T-Fletch. He will tell you what he thinks for sure.
Yeah, because I prefaced this that, remember what I said, he's still on hold as to whether I hate him or not, all right? But I've lost my train of thought here.
You were
puppet trading. So Ken Roberts had a hotline. People would call in, and I, being like Clay, loves Excel spreadsheets. I have Excel spreadsheets for absolutely everything I do. Ask my wife. She just says I'm nuts. And so I started a spreadsheet keeping track of his trade recommendations every day. and basically running list or a track record of his trades. And he wasn't very good. He was actually horrible. But he made a lot of money in silver at one time, and he would pump that for like 6 months of how good it was. And these people would follow him. So the people would call the hotline. They'd get what the trade is for the day. Then they'd call us and place the order. Now, keep in mind that when we place an order back then, a futures contract was $75 in and $75 out. And options were $125 to buy. We were nice and didn't charge them anything to exit.
100 commissions you're talking about.
Yes, commissions.
Ches,
we're in the wrong business, Glenn.
Yeah.
Well,
now you can see
back then. I mean, now it's
making on a monthly basis.
That $125
for an option.
Ches, give listeners a little context. What is a typical option contract? And heck, even a futures. What is a typical futures commission and an options commission? Just to give listeners a little bit of context of how crazy this actually is.
Right now, it's between $1 and $1.50 each turn. So for futures, you can generally get a round trip for about $3, and for options, you can get them for as low as like $1.30 now. Round trip, so buying and selling. So $1.30. So, I mean, I can't even. I'm like at a loss for words at how expensive. Like $75 for a futures contract purchase and sell. Like that's crazy. I mean, I like
how you threw in
shorter term stuff.
Yeah,
but.
I like how tfletch threw in. And we were charging them $125, but we were nice about it. We didn't even charge them to exit the trade. I mean, we just $125. How polite of you guys, tfletch. How polite of you. But I mean, I would assume at that point in time that was just the going rates for commissions. It's not like you were, charging absorbent rates. It was what it was. Is that the marketplace?
Yeah, if they were so up priced. But yeah, that just must be the going rate back then. Yeah, Tim.
Right. I mean, and I say, we were being nice. At the time, I had zero idea. Now I realize how ridiculously high they were. But at that time, I had zero clue as to what, they charge or what should be charged. That's just what we charged. And now when I look back, I think, oh, my God. So we would charge those. And in fairness to Ken Robertson, like I said, I've met him, and I think he's a great guy, and he's a really nice guy. And he figured out a way to make a tremendous amount of money. And we did puppet trade him. And I'm sure he had some good trades over the years. And we obviously made our share of money off him. But I brought that up simply because we were just puppet traders. And we had another individual who's written numerous books, is pretty well known in the commodities field because he nailed soybeans one year. And I guess a lot of people made a lot of money, and he harped on that for quite a long time. And he opened up an account. He had a hotline, and people would call into that, and he'd place trades. And he was charged, it was $200 a month for his hotline back then. And we ended up handling that account for him because Rich, my brother-in-law, he was always looking for other guys who traded so that we could puppet trade other people and diversify, And so this guy would charge $200, and we ended up, I'm not going to name any more names. Maybe I shouldn't even have named the other one, but
you're more than fair to him.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't feel like you threw him under the bus at all. You tracked his track record. It is what it is. So I mean, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So this other gentleman, he was charging $200 a month, and we ended up handling because he didn't want the time. He traveled a lot. Like I said, he's pretty well known. Now, I don't know about nowadays, but back then he was pretty well known in the commodities and futures world and economics, and he wrote some books. He's a highly intelligent individual. But he was charging $200 a month, and we ended up handling that account for him of billing and stuff to take it off his hands. And he'd have any given time a couple hundred people a month paying $200 a month. Well, that's a pretty nice income in and of itself. And so he opened up an account with us to trade his hotline just to see how it did. And my brother-in-law gave it to me, and I created a spreadsheet and started tracking his trades. And I actually traded his account. He put $50,000 in an account, and I had authority over it, and I placed the trades. He would put, buy soybeans on weakness. That was his alert. And so
that seems kind of broad.
It was very broad in hindsight looking at it, but I traded his account by interpreting what I felt he was saying. It didn't go so well. And he said it was all my fault. And he ended up
It's easier to blame somebody else.
Well, exactly. I'm placing the trades, but the trades weren't doing what, he was hoping. And he says, well, you didn't enter the right place. I said, well, you said buy on weakness.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there was weakness. I bought. You should have waited longer. It was one of these things.
So he was using hindsight as a tool against you.
Yes. And like I said, this is a highly intelligent individual that some of the books he's written, are amazing. The depth he goes into on geopolitical things and world events and stuff like this. But anyways, that one didn't work out so well either. He ended up closing the account. And we were still trading his, we had some people that would trade it. And I was getting real sick of it because now we're going on a couple years and I wasn't making anywhere near the kind of money I was thinking I was going to make. These 5,000 plus leads that were there pretty much most of them were dead. And, there wasn't much there. I'd be there till 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock calling West Coast people that had, inquired. And opened some accounts. I ended up with, a couple $1 million worth of book, as we call it back then, at people that were trading. And I did this for 4 years, and because he brought in a couple of other guys that we puppet traded. And in the 4 years that I was a broker, I don't know if this will shock people or not. That's why I'm glad that I'm getting the education that I want. And I want to see a lot of these young guys that are in CTU and in the chat get educated, because let me tell you, folks, in 4 years of being a futures broker, I never had one single client close an account that made money.
That's crazy.
That's a pretty harrowing stat right there.
Not one single one. And I felt guilty. I got to the point. That's why I left after 4 years. I told my wife, we got to the point. She says, you know what? It's time for you to go get a real job again. She's told me that 3 times in my life. And I took her advice, and it's worked out much better when I got back into what I know. But, yeah, not one. I'd had a guy open an account with $50,000, and he was a cotton farmer. And guess what he traded? Cotton. Guess how much he lost? A little over $45,000, and he closed his account.
Now, what do you attribute that to? Lack of education, sure, but what was this cotton farmer? What was his strategy? Was he just buying on his gut instincts? Was he? And is that
Pure
what
speculation?
Most all of them bought on just gut instinct. They didn't have anything to look at. They had no charts to look at. They had, there just wasn't anything available to them back then. We had charts, but in all honesty, these people are dealing with somebody that didn't really know. I didn't know how to read a chart. Now, there were a couple other brokers in there that got to learning some technical analysis, and I think that they were on the right track. It didn't interest me. This is pretty funny to say. Here I'm a futures broker, and I wasn't interested in learning how to trade technical analysis or anything. I just wanted to make some money, and I wanted to try to help these people. And I did try to help them, such as 3 clients that were all friends, and they opened an account together. And they got into sugar towards the close one day. I don't know why they got into it. They just says, we want to buy sugar. So they bought a contract or 2 each. And the next day, sugar gapped. It was a limit up the next day. So they were all 3 in a windfall profit of $3,000-$4,000, whatever it was. I can't recall. And so I called them. I says, guys, you just made an incredible amount of money overnight. And quite frankly, I'd highly suggest you just exit now and take your money and run. Oh, no, it's going higher. It's going higher. It's going higher.
There's the greed.
Yep.
There you go. And it was amazing. And they all stayed in the trade. They all end up losing money on the trade. And that was the frustrating part about it, because if I would have got them out, talked them into getting out, and then the market continued to run, now I'm the bad guy. But then you're the bad guy in the way it ended up, because it says, why didn't you just force us out? It's like after 4 years of listening to that kind of crap, I couldn't take it anymore.
It's funny you bring. It's funny you bring that up, because literally just yesterday I recorded a video for newer traders, but also veteran traders, about the concept of hindsight and why hindsight is so dangerous. Because when you compare yourself to hindsight, or in your case, tfletch, when your clients are comparing you to hindsight, you literally cannot win, because unless you told them to execute it exactly perfectly, because that's what hindsight is. Hindsight, you know exactly what happened, then you were wrong in one way or another. So because we all play the hindsight game as traders. That's just commonplace, but it's very dangerous, because when you are comparing yourself as a trader to perfection, which is what hindsight is, you're always going to lose. So I can only probably begin to imagine how frustrated and annoying you were, because you're right. You're darned if you do, you're darned if you don't. I mean, and it is what it is when your clients are comparing you to hindsight.
You sum that up absolutely perfectly, and that's a position a broker is in back then. Now, obviously in some of these brokerage firms now, maybe some of these people have a little more education, a little more training, but sometimes I doubt it, because I've talked to some of them. I go, okay, and I just hang up and I figure it out on my own.
Right, yeah, and I mean, we've had financial advisors on the show and past ones that say, yeah, we really don't know that much about, the funds or anything. We just know that, okay, these are the funds that you need to sell, and I can't remember who, but it's not really how much you help your clients. It's all driven by sales, like how much sales are you bringing in.
You get a bonus for getting people in certain funds, and there's incentives for this and that, and it's essentially just a sales job versus a trading job, which I found absolutely fascinating, because I had no idea. Then again, I've never dealt with like financial advisors or anything like that, but yeah, it's all based on those kind of sales commissions versus turning a profit. Obviously it's nice, because then you keep your clients and they keep spending commissions and things like that, but just like you said, with all these leads that come in, the only accounts you had that were closing were people who were just done and losing money, and then it's just the churn and burn. It's just as simple as that.
And that's a perfect segue into my question here is, I'll give these people a little bit of a pass, because Ches and I, we have so much to be thankful for, we take for granted from a technological standpoint. So for these people, I'll give them that. Might not have been as easy to find a chart, might not have been easy to find this, that, or the other, but if they had put in the effort, if they had said, you know what, I want to do this, I want to do it right, could they have gotten access to charts? Could they have gotten access to the things that they needed to actually build a system and strategy that wasn't quite what seems to be just gambling on their part? Did they have access to it if they made the required effort?
Well, I don't know back then that was available. I'm sure it was, but it had to be via books. There was no internet. So I guess I don't, that's an interesting question, because I guess I don't know how you would learn it back then, other than buying some books on trading that were written at the time and trying to learn them in technical analysis and stuff.
Or literally sitting down with somebody doing it and having them essentially be a one-on-one mentor. Because that's a great question, Clay. I have no idea how they would even learn at that point.
Yeah, because how did you get a chart? Like, did somebody literally draw out a chart and then print it out? Every day. Okay, a new day has passed. Here's what the new candlestick is, or here's where the. I'm just curious. I guess.
We didn't have.
Go ahead.
Well, maybe there were candlestick charts back then in the office. We sure didn't have them. They were just green bars. I mean, that was it. It was a black screen with green bars with the left, where the open and the close. But the guys would print the charts out, and they were drawing lines on them. And we did genuinely make an attempt to help them out and placing stop orders and stuff as time went on after I was there. But a lot of people, back to the commission thing, so-called churn and burn. I mean, there were numerous times that my brother-in-law would come in and say, hey, guys, you got to get on the phones and get a hold of your clients, and we need to get them into some of these trades, because obviously he wants the commissions on a daily basis. And I don't think it was anything like what you see on some of these TV shows, but there was no doubt about it. We'd call people up and basically talk them into a trade, and it's what you did.
Yeah, and I mean, you're in the broker is a commission basis, so that makes sense. And now knowing what obviously you were never doing this with an ill intent in mind, but now people were forcing trades for the sake of, well, let's just get them in a trade. So let's find something. Not that there was any sort of rhyme or reason behind it, other than, hey, we're running a business. We got to generate some fees. So let's find a trade to put these people into. But as a trader now, looking back to tfletch, you're like, well, that's like, I would never want to force myself into a trade just for the sake of trading.
Right. Well,
but
it got tough. I couldn't do it. we all know the sayings of the automobile salespeople, but I've been in automobiles my entire life, and I operated with integrity and had a reputation. And it finally ate at me so much in this. I felt, even though I'm not really doing anything wrong, I just don't feel like it's an ethical business. And that's why I left and got back in the car business. Now I've been, for the last 17 years, self-employed, and I have a reputation, and all I do on a daily basis is spend other people's money at my discretion. So obviously you have to have some reputation to do that. And I didn't feel like I was building any reputation whatsoever being a futures broker.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to, because that's a super interesting stat, like Chad said. It's just wow. So the 4 years, everybody, basically blew up their account, lost money. If you could summarize why that was it because they didn't have access to the tools, or was it because they were just simply gambling? But what is your kind of hindsight opinion on why? I mean, not a single account. So what exactly was the diagnosis in your opinion? Obviously, you don't really know, but what do you think?
I think there's numerous things. One is the hype from the book, the manual that they read about the kind of money you can make. So the greed factor gets in there. The trades now, as we trade now, none of them look at as a percentage of return on investment, such as the guys that traded the sugar. Their return on investment was phenomenal. People don't look at making, and I like how you always bring it up, Clay, in the podcast and stuff, is that, this individual's trading with a $500 account and makes $25, and people scoff at that. $25, I'm not getting in to do that. And I think that was a lot of the mentality in this, because they had to open with a minimum of $5,000 for a futures account back then, through our firm anyways. And I think they were looking to, get 10 times their money the first month or second month, or maybe in 6 months. So that was a factor. If you call them and say, hey, we're $150 ahead in this trade. We didn't know about risk mitigation then, but all of them were pretty much trading just single contracts. We had some guys that traded larger amounts. One guy traded S&P 500 futures contracts. He was trading 2, 4, and 6 lots, and he could not see a monitor. And we'd place orders for him every single morning. I still remember his name. I'll just say the first name, Dwayne. And he would call every morning, and he had some sort of a system that he did. If the S&P moves X amount up, you short, or you put me in long, or if it moves X amount down, you put me in short. And that's
he's just boxing up the market.
Exactly.
Yeah, real simple old school strategy right there.
And he made in one of the huge falls when was the big crash in the 80s?
87?
Yeah. He made like $250,000 in just a few days on the S&P futures, and it took him 12 months to lose it all.
I was going to say, wait a second there. You said that you never opened. Wow.
Yeah. He lost every bit, but he had to refund his account, and he refunded it. And then we'd have guys that would trade. They had larger accounts. They would just trade like the beans, corn, things like that, and they would scale down, but they would trade brackets. So if it moved X amount up, they'd be in at a certain price. If it moved up, they exited. If it went down X amount, they just add another contract. If it went down again, they had another contract, and they just keep bracketing it. And you had to have
the old school averaging in.
Yes, and you had to have a bankroll to do it, but they figure soybeans can't go to zero. So if they're $6 now, and that's just what they would do. So, and at $75 each way.
That's still, those numbers are hard to wrap my mind around. So it finally got to you, being compared to hindsight, to just seeing, people losing money. After 4 years, you said that's it. So did you go back to California, or did you stay in Michigan? And okay, so take us from that point of the journey. What happened then?
All right, we stayed in Michigan. I got back into the car business, and I managed a dealership until 2001. And I left in 2001 and started my own business. And I had done some investing in my 401k at the dealership and build up some money, but I was still in the state of mind that I'm only like 40, and I got a lot of time to save. I knew about money, but I just didn't put enough away. And for the young people out there, this Grow Rich thing, and I haven't completed all of it, but it's good stuff. And the young people, trust me, before you know it, you'll be turning 60. And if you don't have the amount of funds that you think you should have, it's your own fault, because Clay's laid it out there for you. It's something that you have to start doing now and do it methodically, because time goes by fast.
And I like how you earlier in the interview you had made this statement. Oh yeah, I have time to save for retirement later, and that really stuck out to me. So, is it safe to say you would match what I described in the course about if you had one regret, one of your regrets would be I wish I would have started sooner?
Oh, without a doubt. Now we've done okay. I mean, I've been not fortunate, just because of hard work. Since I was 18 years old, I've never ever had a single job my entire life that I was guaranteed an income. I've been on 100% commission since I was 18 years old. And
that's the grind right there, too, because if you don't perform, you're not getting paid.
Yeah, every day I get up, when I start a new week in my own personal business, I have zero idea how much money I'm going to make for this week. And it's always driven me. And we've done well. We've made very good money. We've been broke. Like I said, my wife is, I don't know how she's hung with me through the years, some of the stuff that I've done and some of the harebrained ideas that I've had. But she always came around, because we've been together since we were 16. And it comes to a point that she finally says, Fletch, it's time for you to go get a real job. And like I said, she said that 3 times, and it's worked out every single time. But she's the one that got me to start this business. I was just getting burnt out in a dealership. Running a dealership is very time-consuming and very, very stressful. And it pays, but boy, it's tough. And starting my own business, she says, you know what? Because we were contemplating it. She says, it's time for you to go out on your own. I says, really? She says, yeah. You're going to do it. And we did. And we haven't looked back. It's been awesome. It's an awesome life that we have now, and the money that we can make. And I work 3 days a week. But with that said, how did I get into CTU and start doing this?
I guess the question would be, what brought you back into the markets? Because it sounds like you were just in your wheelhouse, which is the car business. And right. I want to dig into that later, because I'm sure you have. But so what brought you back to the markets?
Well, what brought me back to it wasn't me that brought me back to the markets. I started putting money into our Roth IRA. My wife never ever liked us being in mutual funds. She got so she wouldn't even go to the annual meet up with the advisor who supposedly has your best interest at heart, which is totally bull. Once you leave their office,
preach it, brother.
Once you leave their office, they are on to the next client, and they won't think about you until their alert goes off next year to call you and say, we got to have a review. And so I was putting money into the Roth IRA, and I told her in April of last year, 2016, as I'm going to put money in, I was writing out some checks. I'm going to put money in our Roth IRA. She says, no, you're not. I said, what do you mean I'm not? My wife can be pretty forceful also. She's a tiny little thing, but she can be authoritative.
They wear the pants, we all know.
Yeah, well, yeah. And you know what? Quite frankly, there's certain times I'm glad she does, because who knows where I'd be.
I think that's women's intuition.
That's right. Yep. So she says, no, you're not. I says, well, what am I going to do? What are we going to do with it? She says, you're going to handle it. I said, I'm going to handle it. Yeah. She says, you're going to manage it. She says, so I suggest you figure out how.
I like your wife a lot. If I can just throw that out there.
I was just going to say the same exact thing.
And so the journey began. I got online. I just Googled, how to trade stocks, do this, do that. Found this, found that. I got on my phone and searched out podcasts, which I'd never listened to a podcast in my life, but I knew what podcasts were. I said, maybe there are some stock trading podcasts. And I found yours. And I had found others and listened to them, and they were garbage. I thought, this is not what I want. I knew what I wanted. I wanted a structured, laid out program to go through. I wanted to go back to school. And that's what I did in between leaving commodities and going back to the dealership. I sat down and wrote a book called The World's... I can't even remember the name of it. Oh, Jeez, it'll come to me in a second. But I wrote the book, and I laid out a methodical plan of how to
Wait,
manage
you wrote
your
the
money.
book and you don't remember the
Yeah.
name of
Writes the
it?
book and forgets
I'm
the
a little
title of it. I
confused
love
here,
it.
okay?
This is so good. This is so good.
I'm going to hold this against you in Columbus
I
for
bet you
sure.
will.
So
You know what? I got it right
I
here.
can't
This
wait
is a
now.
very-
It's coming.
We gotta,
You know what,
we gotta start
Clay?
getting you to do
It was
Sudoku or
called-
something.
And we're not editing this out either. We are not editing this
You know
out.
what?
That is gold right there.
I don't care if you edit it out. It was called
The
Organize
community is going to, oh man. Next time you're in the chat,
Oh my God. It was called Organize Your Life, 7 Steps to Financial Freedom. And I laid out the steps to get organized, organize your files, lay out your bills, create a budget, create a spreadsheet. And we did it all. And I was doing some seminars on it. Of course, by this time, the brokerage business was not kind to me money-wise. I had no stop loss. With the money that we cashed out of our house and came back to Michigan with, in 4 years, it was gone. We were flat broke when she finally said, go get a real job. We sold our house, cashed out, paid off the debts we had, and moved into an upstairs 2-bedroom apartment with our 2 kids. And that was in 1992. So you young guys out there that are afraid to work 35, 40 hours a week, I'm going to tell you what. If you are watching
don't hold back, please.
Yeah.
Do not hold back.
If you're in CTU or you're in the chat room, you need to take a hold of this and you need to run with it and apply it, because if you don't, you're going to regret it at later years. Because when I did that book and stuff, we didn't have the capital to make a living, and I couldn't sell them fast enough because we didn't have the internet then. So I went and got a real job, and then I discovered Dave Ramsey. And I thought, he stole my book. But I didn't know who Dave Ramsey was. Here I'm off on tangent, but I got to finish this.
No, stay with this. Hey, no, personal finance. We like personal finance here.
Well, I read his book, and I thought, I don't need to sell my book. I'm just going to make money in the car business because that's what I can do and that's what I need to do, because we need to make some money and build back what we had. And so what I would do is when people start talking about money and they're complaining, they're broke and they have nothing, I say, you know what? You need this book. And I'd tell them about the book. And I says, here's what I'm going to do for you. You go buy that book and you read it from cover to cover. And when you're done with it, you bring me the receipts of the book and I'll pay you for the book. And I did that with hundreds of people over the next couple of years. Do you know how many people came back to me with a receipt?
Chaz, go for it. I know the answer.
0.
You're exactly right. It just blew my mind. So now, unless someone's really sincere about wanting help, it just doesn't matter to me. You know what? I'm paying attention to myself. I'll help somebody in a heartbeat if they want help. But most people don't want help. They just want to wallow in their sorrow. So you young guys are out there, and even the older guys, this is something that you can run with and make a living at if you educate yourself. And that's what got me onto this. I found the Stock Trading Reality podcast after listening to numerous others that weren't any good. I listened to them, and I listened to what these people were saying, and I loved them. And I just started at number 1 and just started going through them. And anytime someone would say something I didn't understand, I says, that's what I have to learn. I have to learn that. And I'd write those things down. I have to learn this. I have to learn this.
Give us some examples of those.
Oh, just the support, the resistance, the entry points, the exit points. They're talking about options. Great. I'm glad I said that. That just reminded me. One thing I did learn when I was a futures broker, we'd always say it in the office. Why are these people buying options? We had to sell options. They all expire worthless.
Amen, brother. Amen, brother.
Yeah,
Preach it.
We're sitting here watching these options all expire worthless. I says, why are we buying them? Why don't we sell them? And they just wouldn't do it. You know, it just, you know.
They being who? Your firm or your clients?
The firm. We never suggested it to them.
You were ahead of your time.
Yeah.
I'm not even lying. You were ahead of your time in seeing that.
Sat there and watched these things expire worthless one after another, and I didn't have the funds, quite frankly, at the time. When we moved back in California, we were just basically living off of our money in the bank. I mean, I was making some money in it, but like I said, I could have made a fortune. I mean, I could have just taken that and ran with it and been an unethical individual and just sucked money out of people. And I'm not trying to make myself sound good or look good. I just couldn't do it. It just wasn't me. So we left and went about our business. And so I stocked the reality broadcast. I listened to all of them and wrote them all down and wrote the notes. And finally I got online and went to claytrader.com. And it was a Sunday afternoon. It was April the It was last year, April the 16th. I think it was a Saturday afternoon. And I purchased the chat for $99. And I thought $1,997 doesn't sound all bad, but I'm going to look into the chat. And I got in the chat room, and all I saw were a bunch of things like I was hearing on the broadcasts. I didn't understand them. I said, I need to learn them. So we went to bed that night, got up the next morning. I came into my office about 5:36, which is my normal time. And I went back to claytrader.com, and I bought CTU. I says, I'm going to do it. So I bought it. Then I realized that chat room came with CTU. I says, that son of a gun ripped me off for $99. And I seethed about that for like 2 weeks. But I couldn't get the gumption up because I was an idiot to call you and want my money back. And I never did. So that's how that went.
But how, I mean, can I defend myself since you just your claim that I ripped you off?
No, you.
I mean,
do I
not say that lifetime membership is included with it as part of the marketing package?
Well, I saw it after the fact, and that's why I was.
Now whose problem is that?
Well, now
we call
I was
that hindsight.
Now I was.
Yeah, Chaz, nice.
Yeah, exactly. So. That's just how that happened, and it didn't matter. I just wrote the $99 off of stupid tax on my part, and I went about my business, and I started the courses, and I just started going through them, and it was phenomenal because that was the structured program that I needed and that I was looking for. And it took me a few weeks to find it once my wife told me to figure out how, and it couldn't have been better for me of what it provides. And I couldn't wait to get to the options, but being the structured person I am, and that's why I always suggest to new guys in the chat room, and you've probably seen what I put up, to do it as Clay suggests, to go through the courses and the binders that I made to try to help some of these younger guys.
Don't watch it at 3 times speed.
Exactly. No. I mean, I sat in my hotel room at 4 o'clock in the morning many a times because I travel quite a bit, not so much anymore. But I'd be up at 4 o'clock in the morning ahead of having to go work an auction at 8:30 or 9, and just go through the courses and write down notes, and you can find the time. And it took me, I think it was about 3-4 months to get through all of them because I wasn't going to hurry, but I could not wait to get to the options part. That just intrigued me so much because of what I said about selling options. But I steadfastly went through the courses, and I finally got to the options, and I loved it, and I'm doing quite a bit of that now, but I'm looking into all of it. I haven't completely figured out exactly which avenue I have. I'm probably a little too scattered right now, but it's all been good.
Well, you'll find your fit. It just takes time because there's a lot of different strategies, different methodologies, and it's obviously, I say it on every single podcast, your personality will definitely kind of come out in your trading.
Right.
But what I want to ask is something that people generally think that they're, above and beyond and don't have to do it. Paper trading. Did you do any paper trading while you're going through the courses, after the courses, to kind of test strategies out, things like that, or did you just start diving in right away with real money?
No, I paper traded some of like the different strategies like trampoline and the volcano and stuff like that, and I did some paper trading on some of the advanced option strategies, straddles, strangles, iron condors, the other, but I had a good grasp of them, and I have the funds to trade with. It's not like, if I lose money, it's going to kill me for the minimal amount that I was trading. And what I found when I was paper trading, and right, wrong, or indifferent, is that I would tend not to pay quite a close attention to it as I did when I started trading real money. And I did the paper trading for a while, and it was good. And I says, you know what? I need to trade real money. And I had opened the accounts, and I traded very, very small. And I started getting the occurrences up there. And when I started out, the very beginning, which I went live trading September 29th of last year, was the first trade I put on, and I started putting trades on. It was almost like the first 20 trades. Well, it was. I'm looking at my totals right now in the spreadsheet. My first 20 trades, I only had 2 losers.
And sorry to do this, but we are going to end it there, and this will be a 2-part episode. So You'll have to come back next week to hear how the rest of T-Fletch's journey all unfolds. It continues to be super interesting. The next episode, there are a ton of great bits of advice that he throws out there. And a couple of times, Ches and I just stumbled over our words and, wow, yeah, that actually makes a whole lot of sense. And, wow, that's a great bit of wisdom. So be sure to come back next week and you can hear the rest of T-Fletch's episodes. So, yeah, until then, take care.
This has been the Stock Trading Reality Podcast. Thanks for taking the time to hang out. To learn more about Clay and the Clay Trader community, including the trading team, premium training, and more, visit claytrader.com.